Of course, it wouldn't be Mother's Day without the world's best mom, my wife, Evie. Come on out. Wow.
Hi.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hello.
5 of the most powerful men in American television sat together on one stage for the final Strike Force 5 reunion. And not a single one of them could correctly answer basic questions about their own wives during the segment. The truth is that the women standing quietly behind these men are hiding some of the wildest stories in Hollywood, including a baby delivered on a lobby floor, a burst appendix that nearly killed a host, and a combat medic who once hid her future husband from federal agents. Number 5. Stephen Colbert and Evie McGee Colbert. Stephen Colbert recently wrapped his final season behind the Late Show desk, and that emotional Strike Force reunion got the entire internet thinking about everything he has lived through to get there. The honest truth is that almost none of it would have happened without the woman waiting for him back home in Montclair, New Jersey. Her name is Evelyn McGee Colbert, but everyone close to her calls her Evie, and she has been quietly anchoring Stephen's life since the year 1993. They first met at the Spoleto Festival in Charleston back in 1990, and Evie has shared what really crossed her mind during that very first moment. She watched Stephen enter the theater with his mother holding onto his arm, and her exact thought was that this man clearly loves his mother, and she could just see it written all over him. That single observation is the reason she agreed to a first date with him, and it tells you everything about why their marriage has lasted over 3 decades. Here is something most fans of his show do not actually know. In December of 2023, Stephen taped 2 back-to-back episodes of The Late Show while quietly fighting a burst appendix. He thought he could push through the pain on his own that night, but Evie knew far better than that. She called his driver, Pablo, and ordered him to skip the house entirely and head straight to the emergency room without telling Stephen anything about it. She refused to let her husband overrule her decision because by that point, his appendix had already ruptured and he was slowly sliding into sepsis. Stephen later admitted on national radio that Evie kind of saved his life that night. You probably already know about the plane crash that defined Stephen as a young child. In September of 1974, his father and his 2 older brothers, Paul and Peter, died together in the crash of Eastern Airlines Flight 212 outside Charlotte. Stephen was only 10 years old when it happened. What you may not realize is that Evie is the woman who has held him through every quiet anniversary of that grief, and she is the reason he ever learned to laugh openly again. Now, think about this for a second. During the pandemic shutdown, Evie did not just sit quietly while her famous husband went stir-crazy at home. She picked up a camera and became his entire one-woman production team, filming The Late Show from inside their Charleston living room. Stephen said at the Emmys that the only good thing that came out of the pandemic is that she finally got to be part of the show, and you could hear his voice almost crack when he said it. The 2 of them released a family cookbook last year called Does This Taste Funny?, full of low-country recipes passed down from Evie's late mother, Patty. They share 3 grown children together named Madeline, Peter, and John. Evie never wanted Hollywood. She wanted a real family kitchen, and that is exactly what she built around the most famous man in late night. If a quiet Southern marriage like Stephen and Evie's already surprises you, wait until you hear the story of the next host on this list, because his entire road to fatherhood took 5 long years and somehow included magnets inside his underwear. Number 4. Jimmy Fallon and Nancy Juvonen. Jimmy Fallon makes a living being the silliest guy on television, but the road that brought him to his 2 daughters, Winnie and Frances, was anything close to funny. Behind the Tonight Show desk sits a man whose wife had to walk him through 5 years of fertility heartbreak before they ever held a baby of their own. Her name is Nancy Juvonen, and she is the producer who started Flower Films alongside Drew Barrymore back in 1995. They first met on the set of Saturday Night Live the night Drew was hosting the show. Nancy snuck quietly into rehearsal, hoping to stay invisible in the back, and Jimmy spotted her almost instantly. She has shared that he called out her name across the entire studio and welcomed her like an old friend he already knew. They grew closer while working together on the romantic comedy Fever Pitch, and Nancy says she really fell in love with him when she watched Jimmy play with a producer's young son like a complete kid himself. There was a hotel room in London where they shared their very first kiss, with Harry Nilsson playing softly on the speakers and an old episode of Taxi flickering on the television in the background. Nancy has called that kiss the best one she has ever had in her entire life. He proposed to her in August of 2007 on her family's dock at Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. Her brother secretly filmed the whole moment from inside the house, and the family agreed not to release that footage publicly for 20 full years. Their wedding came together in just 3 weeks. When a window opened up on Richard Branson's private Necker Island, Jimmy turned to Nancy and asked, what if they just got married right now? She told him it was the best idea of all human time, and exactly 12 guests flew out to watch them say their vows in December of 2007. Then came the part that almost nobody saw coming. After 5 long years of trying for a baby, Nancy and Jimmy turned to gestational surrogates in Dallas, Texas. Both Winnie and Frances were born from their own embryos, carried by women that Jimmy still calls his real-life angels. The process broke them down emotionally over and over again. Jimmy has joked openly that he tried absolutely everything, including sleeping upside down for hours and even putting magnets inside his underwear during the long IVF stretch. Nancy has been a little more direct about all of it. She said they spent 5 years really deciding not to give up. And that single quote has comforted thousands of couples who are walking the same lonely road today. What makes their story land so hard is how privately they kept all of it from the public eye. They did not tell anyone Nancy was using a surrogate, and they wanted Winnie's arrival to feel like a happy surprise instead of a press release. He still surprises Nancy with romantic gestures whenever he can, including the time he hired a real live choir to walk into a sushi restaurant and sing Close to You for her birthday. If a 5-year fight to become parents already feels like a lot, the next host on our list went through something even more public, because his own wife sat behind him while he delivered a 13-minute monologue that changed American politics overnight. Number 3. Jimmy Kimmel and Molly McNierney. Jimmy Kimmel announced that his retirement era is approaching soon, but the person who has truly shaped his last 15 years on television is not a single network executive. It is his wife, Molly McNierney. She walked into the offices of Jimmy Kimmel Live in 2004 as a writer's assistant, climbed all the way to head writer alongside Jimmy himself, and is now the executive producer of the entire show. She is also the mother of his 2 youngest children, Jane and Billy. The very first time Molly stepped into Jimmy's office, he barely even looked up at her from his desk. Her boss mentioned that she competed in triathlons during her free time, and Jimmy responded by telling her that triathlons were really stupid and a complete waste of human time. That was her honest first impression of the man she would eventually marry. She has admitted she did not think of him romantically for years afterward, mostly because he was her direct boss, and dating your boss is already complicated enough without him also being on television every single weeknight. He proposed during a real safari trip to South Africa in August of 2012, and they got married at the Ojai Valley Inn in July of 2013. Their guest list looked like the Oscars' red carpet, with Jennifer Aniston, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Emily Blunt all in attendance. Instead of asking for wedding gifts, they politely asked every guest to donate to charity in their name. Then came the moment that changed absolutely everything for their family. Their son Billy was born in April of 2017, and a sharp nurse at Cedars-Sinai noticed that the newborn baby looked purple in color. She heard a heart murmur. 3 days later, Billy underwent his first open heart surgery to repair a rare condition called tetralogy of Fallon with pulmonary atresia. He has had 3 open heart surgeries since that very first one. On the 1st of May in 2017, Jimmy delivered a tearful 13-minute opening monologue about Billy's surgery that almost hit 14 million views on YouTube. He told the entire country that if your baby is going to die, and it does not have to, then it should not matter how much money you make. Here is what most viewers will never know. Molly was on maternity leave the day he delivered it, sitting in their living room breastfeeding their newborn son with her own mother sitting beside her. And Jimmy refused to send her the script draft beforehand. She sobbed through the entire monologue and could not believe the strength it took for her husband to share that story only 1 week after it actually happened. Molly later said that strangers were sending hate mail to their home and attacking them brutally on social media for politicizing their newborn son. She still believes Jimmy did it because of every other family they met inside that hospital who could not afford the same care. She helped him write that monologue word by word, and she helped him write his Las Vegas shooting monologue too. If a workplace romance that turned into a national healthcare movement already feels intense, wait until you hear what happened to the next couple on this list, because their second child was literally born on the floor of their apartment lobby. Number 2. Seth Meyers and Alexi Ashe. Seth Meyers delivers some of the most fearless monologues on late night, but at home, he is the one who has been completely ambushed 3 times in a row by his own children. His wife, Alexi Ashe, is a working human rights attorney who handles cases involving human trafficking, which already makes her sound far braver than most of us will ever be. The 2 of them first met at the wedding of Chris Kattan in Oakhurst, California in June of 2008. The funny part is that Chris Kattan's own marriage fell completely apart in only 8 weeks, but that same weekend somehow created Seth and Alexi forever. They hit it off so quickly that by the second day of the wedding, other guests kept asking how long the 2 of them had been a couple already. He still waited 5 whole years before he finally proposed. When he did it in July of 2013, he tied her engagement ring inside a bow on the collar of their Italian greyhound named Frisbee and waited patiently at home for her to come back through the door. Alexi was running late that afternoon, and Seth has shared that he kept staring at the dog and worrying it would actually eat the ring before she walked in. They married 2 months later at a quiet farm on Martha's Vineyard, even though Alexi got food poisoning from a bad oyster the night before the ceremony. Now here is the part of the story that sounds completely made up. Their first son, Ash, was born so fast in 2016 that they only made it to the hospital with 20 minutes to spare inside an Uber. 2 years later, when Alexi went into labor with their second son, they tried calling another Uber to make the same trip. The labor moved faster than the elevator did that morning. Their son Axel was born right there on the floor of their New York apartment lobby in April of 2018, while Seth was on the phone with 911 and the doorman watched in pure shock. Seth turned that wild night into an entire Netflix special called Lobby Baby. The real story behind Axel's middle name is even more meaningful. He was named Axel Strahl in direct honor of Alexi's grandparents, who actually met inside a hospital in Austria the day after they were freed from a concentration camp. That single detail alone tells you what kind of family legacy this couple carries forward. When their daughter Adelaide came along in September of 2021, the doorman in their building basically begged them not to repeat the lobby moment one more time. So Adelaide was born safely in the family bathtub at home, and she was named after Seth's maternal grandmother. If a baby on a lobby floor already shocks you, The #1 love story on this list will leave you genuinely speechless because it begins with a future husband running from federal security agents and a combat medic who decided to save his entire life. Number 1. John Oliver and Kate Norley. This is the love story that nobody saw coming, and once you hear how it actually happened, you will understand exactly why it tops the entire list. John Oliver hosts one of the most respected satirical news shows on American television today, but he met his wife Kate Norley by complete accident at a place no British comedian should have ever been wandering through. Their meet cute took place at the 2008 Republican National Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it almost ended with his immediate deportation. At that time, John was working as the senior British correspondent for The Daily Show. He was inside the United States on a temporary work visa, which meant any kind of trouble with federal security could have shipped him back to England overnight. He accidentally wandered into a restricted area at the convention, and security agents started closing in on him. Kate Norley happened to be at that same convention, but she was not a politician or a working journalist. She was a former United States Army combat medic who had just finished a 16-month tour in Iraq with the 1st Cavalry Division. She had served in Fallujah and Ramadi, and she was campaigning that week alongside a veteran group called Vets for Freedom. When Kate and her fellow veterans realized what was about to happen to this terrified British comedian, they made a quick decision together. They physically pulled John and his crew into their group, surrounded them with their own bodies, and shielded them from convention security agents until the danger finally passed. He has told this story countless times since then, and he never forgets to mention that he owes his entire American career to a woman who had already saved actual lives inside a real war zone. They started dating not long after that convention week, and John has been refreshingly honest about how the gap in life experience hits him every single day. He told David Letterman directly that when he comes home from writing jokes for a comedy show, Kate's eyes roll back into her head and she tells him to just shut up already. He said that when you have actually been in a war, you have absolutely no time for the insecurities of a mid-range comedian. He proposed to her in July of 2010 during a vacation together to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. They got married in October of 2011 in a private ceremony so quiet that no public photographs from it have ever surfaced anywhere. Their first son, Hudson, was born prematurely in November of 2015 after a very difficult pregnancy that worried John deeply for months. Their second son arrived in 2018. In December of 2019, John finally became a United States citizen at the federal building in Lower Manhattan. He was so nervous that day that he forgot his own phone number during the official ceremony. Kate stood right beside him through the entire moment. You will sometimes spot a small pin on John's lapel during episodes of Last Week Tonight if you watch closely enough. That little pin is actually the badge of the 1st Cavalry Division. It belongs to Kate's old unit, and he wears it proudly on national television because his entire career, his American citizenship, and his whole family all trace directly back to that one chaotic moment when a combat medic decided to save a complete stranger from getting arrested at a political convention. These 5 women quietly built the men we watch every single night, and they did it entirely from the shadows. Which of their hidden stories surprised you the most today? And which one of these couples do you personally believe holds the strongest love story? Please share your thoughts in the comments below.